Let me just, I'll give you my hot take of the morning here. I'll go on record before the season kicks off. By the end of the year, we'll be talking about a $35 to $40 million a year contract for Jalen Hurts, because look at how they've set him up for success. Is there really a better supporting cast for any quarterback? You mentioned Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. As good as it gets right there. The offensive line, arguably the best in the league.
It's a Birds 365 Wednesday edition. We're down at Mac. Johnny Mac is in South Beach getting ready to watch the Eagles and the Dolphins do their joint practice thing. So I got Ric Serritella by my side filling in today. Even without his buddy John McMullen, Mike Gill said, I'm in. Now, I'm going to be here with you guys once a week, Monday. Not a problem. I'm in for Wednesday, 8:20. And he looks rocked and ready to go. You ready to dish the Eagle dirt there, my Mike Gill?
I am. I even moved my spot so it looks like I have the Ocean Casino behind me.
Hey, good effort out of you. Whatever.
Yeah. Look, they gave me a nice hat there, Jody.
You live in that house? They let you live in a nice house like that?
Yeah, they put me up.
Oh, very good. Whoever's paying that tab, that's a nice little layout you got there. All right, speaking of layout, the Eagles will try and lay out against the Vikings today. Dual practices between the three of us. We've all been doing this for a while, so we don't remember. We can go back to remembering when joint practice scrimmage. Now, you don't scrimmage in the NFL. Nobody scrimmages in the NFL. But then a couple of teams did it to get some extra work in. Before you know it, became all the rave in the National Football League. How important are these next two practices, Michael?
Well, I don't know how important they are for the success or failure of the team, but I think they're pretty important in the roster makeup, right? These are the things now that all of these teams have essentially told us are more important than these games that they're putting on television to generate a lot of revenue. They don't care about the revenue being generated, the coaches trying to put their roster together, and they're using these practices way more than these games are. I mean, you watch that game on Sunday or Saturday, what did they play Sunday last week, and you realize they just don't care at all. I mean, they just don't care about those games. I mean, Jody, there was a time you talk about joint practices. In 1998, I was interning for you, setting up your show at Lehigh, and those guys were getting at it. And they were 2 a day in it, man, and they were battling to make that team. Now they're using these practices in replacing those 2 a day practices, the chance to get out there against another team. Really, for these 2 days, it's these battles for, I don't know how many roster spots are up for grab, probably not too many, but these next 2 days are probably significantly more important than the game on what do they play Saturday this week. They moved these preseason games. What happened to my Thursday night preseason, man? They moved them all over the place.
Well, hey, Mike, thanks for hopping on. I'm not going to complain too much because they gave us almost a game every weeknight. We can watch some preseason football, but you're talking my speed. It probably sounds like a foreign language to most of these players, 2 days and 3 days. But let me spin it on the opposite side for a second here, because we all remember when Chip Kelly came into the league, half of the side was on the boom, half of the other side was on the bust. Is it going to work out? I'm looking at Mike McDaniel. I mean, I have not seen a more overrated head coach come into the league that has proven really nothing. Where do you kind of see this kid going? He's been called a hipster. Does not look the part, but then you talk to some of the coaches around the league and they call him a brainchild, a genius. I kind of compare it similar to Chip Kelly. I think it's either going to boom or it's going to bust. I don't see an in between here.
You know, if you watch his interviews, what an interesting, he just is a bizarre. He reminds me a little bit of Trestman. Remember when Mark Trestman came from Canada to the Bears and he was like this brainchild offense, and the way McDaniels gives these answers, you're almost like, do you even like football? How did you get involved in this game? I'm intrigued to see how it all looks. I mean, he's certainly man, they've got some talent on that team, and it's similar to the Eagles where they've got a lot of talent, and the biggest question is, interestingly enough, the quarterback that supplanted Jalen Hurts. I wonder how those conversations are. Like, are they buddies? Do they talk? Is it one of those things where, you're just kind of head nodding them across the field. I'd love to know what their relationship is like, but I guess McDaniel, look, it could either be one of those things where this guy is the exact right person for that situation, or we talk about a one and done kind of guy. You don't see that too often in the NFL.
Well, McDaniel may answer questions differently, but the guy you were just talking about, Mike, gives you such standard answers. I don't think you can say the relationship between Hurts and Tua, because Jalen Hurts is going to give you the same answer he always gives you. Oh, everything's good. We're fine. He doesn't go in depth on anything. He's become, and most of them come out of Alabama this way, well prepared to give you football pap and not give you any true insight. So the fact that McDaniel's a little weird, a little goofy, a little different than everybody else, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, if he falls flat on his face, what the hell were they doing hiring him? Oh, I'll do a 180. But
Jody,
until he falls on his face, I'm not going to project that he's going to fall on his face.
In Philadelphia, we like to grade the press conference. Oh, he won the press conference. He did a great job. I don't know that they do that all over the country, but we certainly will take whatever they say in a press conference here and then judge them whether or not they will be successful based on the 15 minutes they spent getting grilled by the Philadelphia media, which is unlike anywhere else in the country. So I'm sure that McDaniel's first day was filled with softballs from the Miami media compared to what it would have been like here and how he would have been judged. I mean, Sirianni, the first day he was here, got destroyed for his press conference.
And he was that bad. Do we overdo it here in Philadelphia? Always, but he really did have a pretty bad first press conference. All right, Mike, this past week against the Browns, even though, as you correctly stated, don't know how much the Eagles actually put into the evaluation, they did look pretty good running the football. First, Boston Scott, right down the field, touchdown. Then Getty Gainwell comes in right down the field, touchdown. Eagles backup offensive line. Some people have overstated a little bit this week that they could be better than 8 of the 32 teams around the National Football. That might be a bit of an overstatement, but they're the best back. I think the Eagles have the best starting offensive line, and I think they have the best backup offensive line compared to the other 32 teams. How many games before Nick Sirianni says, yeah, this whole passing thing, I know we gave A.J. Brown a lot of money, but we run the football better than we do anything else. We got to go back to doing it again. I don't think it's happening. Some people think it should happen week one. What's your read on if and when the Eagles go, yeah, we're a running football team?
I said this a couple of weeks, I think, with you guys, is I don't know that they're going to throw the ball all that much more. They're just going to be, hopefully, more successful when they choose to throw. In other words, I think there's still going to be a team that can run the football at you whenever they feel like it, whenever they want to. But now when they take their shots, those shots are going to be much better options. And that will make their passing game that much more explosive because they're a team that does choose and is willing to run the ball so that when they do throw the ball, those opportunities are much bigger plays. I think you're going to see just bigger play. You got no big plays from the pass game last year. They just had no downfield threat. Well, now you've got multiple threats. You've got 3 different guys who could probably lead team. Goddard, I think, is going to have a huge year. I think it's weird. I said, how can I add up that Smith, Goddard, and Brown all have 1,000 yards? I don't know if that's approachable, but I just think big plays are going to be there.
Not if they're going to be a run-first team, Mike.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I just think bigger plays will be there. So, in other words, like I think Smith, instead of getting these 9-yard plays, he could get 29-yard plays. I just think they're going to have bigger plays in their passing game than they did last year. So I don't know if they pass the ball more. I just think they have bigger plays in their passing game. And I still think this team is going to run the ball with the same success. And we saw even Gardner Minshew on Sunday run a lot of RPO stuff. I mean, so if they're running RPO with Minshew, I would imagine they're going to amp that up for Hurts even more. So I think that's a big part of their offense still. I don't know that the pass game goes to some 40 passes in a game, but I think the passes when they do elect to throw are just bigger plays, more space, bigger, more opportunities in the pass game. Last year, it's amazing how much one guy adds and then it's almost like getting Bryce Harper back to your lineup, and everybody bounces down one. You're like, man, this lineup's got more depth all of a sudden. Well, now Devonta Smith being the number 2, now you're like, wow, who's going to guard that guy being a number 2? That's what A.J. Brown adds.
Number 2 on paper, but it wouldn't surprise me if he leads this team in receiving because of how much attention is paid to A.J. Brown. But I think you're right, Mike. That's why they went out and got a guy like A.J. Brown. I think over the last 4 years, nobody has more big plays of 40 yards or more. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to air it downfield, because he's as good after the catch as any wide receiver in the league, as far as I'm concerned. But let me go over to the defensive side. Jody was mentioning how they're going to be dependent upon the run. I know stopping the run is a big issue that they're trying to improve upon going into the season. And I'm looking at this backup safety spot now. Jaquiski Tart, he kind of thrives playing in the box and stopping the run. But Josiah Scott, we just talked about, has been cross-trained now to also play safety. We know Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps are entrenched there. So is this a case of 3-1, 3-2, Jaquiski Tart, Kayvon Wallace, Reed Blankenship playing well? I mean, how many guys can realistically make this back end of the roster?
Yeah, that's an area, Rick, where I wouldn't be surprised. We talked about this on my show yesterday, where I wouldn't be surprised. Corey Graham was a guy in the Super Bowl year. They just kind of kept bringing back, like, they had a familiarity with him, and they just let him sit out of the training camps, and then boom, all right, we'll bring you. That's a spot where I still think that there could be somebody that gets cut or that's hanging out there that they bring in for depth, because I still don't think they feel great with Tart yet. And the backup, I think they like Scott. And there's one thing that Roseman and this organization still likes to kind of do is Howie gets blasted for being outsmart in the room and trying to do. They like to find these undrafted guys and say, see, we found that guy and we made something of him. And Josiah Scott is a guy they traded for with, I think, Jacksonville, brought him in. And I think they like the fact that, hey, we found this guy and got something from him. So I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck with him. But we're scouring. When's they got to go from 85 to 53? Tuesday next week? So yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they started to scour. That's not, because I don't think Tart is the right fit for this. And you talk about the running game, Rick. I think you saw how different their linebackers played when Jordan Davis just was okay last week. The first game, he took up space and the linebackers cleaned house. I thought Davis didn't have as big of an impact on Sunday for whatever reason, and those linebackers didn't have as much driving lane to step in there and make those tackles. And this defense against the run is going to be predicated on him taking up blockers, I think, anyway, because they struggled against the run last year. Why? Because Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are not two tackles who want to stop the run. They want to get upfield and rush the passer. So that safety position is going to be pretty key, especially a tackler. So I would expect another safety from outside the organization to still be somebody they keep an eye on.
I'll give you the reason that Jordan Davis didn't do as much in week 2 as he did in week 1, as much as it pains me to say. Jets' offensive line isn't that good. The Browns actually do have a pretty good offensive line. So give some credit to the opposition there. All right. Jalen Reagor.
Who?
He was Jalen Reagor. We all know who he is. First-round draft pick, disappointment, 2 years in. Deion Kane looked good in the game, even if they didn't put much emphasis on it. He's looked good in practice as well. He made a play in the first game. Right now, he looks like just a better football player than Jalen Reagor.
Yeah.
And Rager's got return capabilities. He's done it. He hasn't busted anything, and like he does it well. He just has the capability of doing so. If they decide, no, we just have to keep the better fifth receiver, and it is Deion Kane, what do you think Howie will pull the trigger on? Is there a trade that he won't make? Another team says, we'll give you a 7th. It's going to look pretty bad trading a first-round pick for a 7th 2 years later. How high does the pick have to come in at for the Eagles to move Jalen Reagor in a deal in the next 7 days?
That's a good way to put the question, Jody. How high does the pick have to be? It's almost like the same question for Dillard. How high would the pick have to be to part ways with a guy that you drafted in the first round? And the Reagor thing is, it's so surprising to me because I watched him at TCU a lot. I'm a Big 12 guy. I went to West Virginia. So, man, he would catch punts and get shot out of a cannon. I mean, he would catch screen passes and just go. And that speed has just not translated to this level for whatever reason. And it certainly hasn't happened in the return game, which is where he probably would help this team the most. The problem with Kane for me is, Jody, he doesn't play special teams. And two, when is he really going to play? I mean, is he just going to be Hank Baskett? Is he going to be Paul Turner? Is he going to be this lineage of extra receivers that have?
When is Rager going to play?
He's going to be
Kane's never going to get on the field. Okay, I'll buy that. But when is Rager?
He'll be in the return game, something Kane doesn't do. So I think that's where he probably, if you just now you asked if I'm just taking the best fifth wide receiver. I think Kane probably offers more as a receiver, but that's not the way they build this roster, right? Am I wrong about that?
You're probably not, but I think the value of the fifth wide receiver is equivalent to the best returner the Eagles have right now. Because I think all their returners, let's be honest, suck. I don't think they've got a good returner on this team.
By the way, I agree with you, Jody, that Reagor has been disappointing as a return man. I'm not excited about him returning, but I don't think they have anybody else right now that they like more in that role. Now, you asked what would it take? I'd probably say they would do it for a fifth at this point. And I don't know that there's a fifth out there for him, but I don't know. There's an injury happen between now and the start of the season that gets somebody extra desperate. That's always a possibility, but to put their former first-round pick just out there for nothing, I don't think they're going to do that. I think a fifth is nothing, but in their mind, we got a fifth. You do it for a seventh, and that looks really bad.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think a fifth would get it done. I think John Ross went for a fifth-round pick when the Bengals gave up on him, and I think you're upgrading the team by keeping Kane. To Jody's point, Rager hasn't been a great returner, but if he stays, that's what he's going to be doing.
Who's beating him out in that role right now?
Well, I'll give you the guy. What I want to see. If I'm the Eagles and I'm going to get a fifth, as Mike Gill just stated, maybe somebody gets drunk and gives them a 4. I don't know. They're looking for ways to get Kenneth Gainwell involved. If Miles is good to go by game 1, Boston Scott makes plays. I don't want to see him get buried on the bench. Give Kenneth Gainwell a chance. Give him a chance. I'd put him back there for both punts and kicks, as a matter of fact.
Hey, if they're willing to give him a look there, I think they would have done it by now.
Well, I think, it speaks to the depth of the running back position also, because then you run the risk of hey, your 1B or your backup running back, he goes down all of a sudden. Boston Scott, who I like. And I would say when you take a look at the three-headed monster of the Eagles backfield, 1 through 3, you could stack them up and say they're as good as any three-back tandem around the league. But there's been a lot of smoke around the running back discussion. The Eagles have kind of been kicking the tires on some guys. You saw, Kareem Hunt. There was some rumors there. I see the chat room is clamoring for a bigger back. Mike, you mentioned they're going to monitor the waiver wire to add a safety. Will they be monitoring the waiver wire? I know Kenyon Drake got cut this week. Will they be monitoring the waiver wire for a running back?
Yeah, Drake's a name that we had brought up yesterday on my show as well, because he's the bigger guy. Catches the ball, too. 30 catches last year out of the backfield. So he's a guy who is a dual threat. I wouldn't be surprised, but I agree with you, Rick. I like Scott. Anytime someone's gotten hurt and they said they don't usually go to the second guy. They have Scott go from 3 to 1, and he goes in there, and you're like, man, this guy, all he does is produce. I don't think he's a productive guy over 17 games. He's just too small. He probably wear down, but as a spot guy here and there, and he's one of those guys, much like, I don't want to say he's like Sproles, but when you're low to the ground and kind of squatty, those guys can get those in between the tackles yards. And I think, Jody, you might have brought this up last week, maybe John, on the goal line, the Eagles use Hurts a lot. What's that?
Yeah, it's Hurts. So he's
right.
Their big back. Jalen Hurts is their big back.
You don't turn around and hand it off all that often to somebody because they use Hurts in that role. So Boston Scott has a knack of finding it. I mean, every time he plays the Giants, he has 3 touchdowns, and they're all within like a yard. So I agree with you, Rick. I think they feel comfortable. Would they kick the tires on a Drake or a veteran bigger guy? Maybe. I mean, they got Jordan Howard on speed dial. If they need a back, they know Howard hasn't been signed by anybody, and they can go down that road.
I don't see him making a play for any other back. I think the back they have here, I think they're hoping to get Kennedy Brooks to the practice squad, and he'll be the emergency, in case of emergency, break glass back. All right. Instead, Mike, let's move to the tight end position. Grant Calcaterra showed up for practice Friday, right before the first preseason game. Didn't get a lot of reps, didn't get to show a lot. The Eagles used a 6th-round draft pick on him. Supposedly he's a guy who could absolutely make plays, getting down the field and catch the ball, but how do we know? And we haven't had a chance to see him, and this has been a lingering injury. Are they keeping him on the 53? Are they going to put him on the PUP? If so, is Noah Tungiai done enough to be the backup tight end on this team? Will they keep 3 tight ends if they keep Toth as well at Stoll at tight end? How is the tight end room going to shake out?
Yeah. Tyree Jackson was interesting yesterday. He got put on the PUP, so he's out at least 4 games. He's probably the guy they're most interested in, right? I mean, he's a guy that last year got 1 game, caught a bunch of passes, scored a touchdown, and then tears his ACL. So unfortunate, just a guy who's an athlete, complete unknown, even more of an unknown than Calcaterra is, who is another guy that, hey, we drafted this guy late. So I'm imagining he's going to be somehow on this roster, whether it be pupless or some capacity. They're going to try to keep him. And I think Togiai is a guy they probably like. Stoll's a blocker. But my question is, how much do they use a second tight end? I mean, you got all these receivers, right? You got 3, 4, 5 guys you like at wide receiver. How much playing time is that second tight end really going, other than short yardage? So that would tell me Jack Stoll is the best equipped guy in that role. So I think they keep 2. And Stoll would be the second guy, and the other guys that they like, Calcaterra, Jackson, they already did. They would probably be IR, PUP, some sort of way that they can keep them in the organization.
You know, we talked about the tremendous depth on the offensive line the Eagles have. The defensive line is also loaded, and especially at this defensive tackle position. But there's a guy down there that's really turning some heads. Marvin Wilson, this kid came out of Florida State. Again, at one point in his Seminoles career, he was being talked about as a potential first-round pick. Now, there was a bunch of coaching changes there in Tallahassee. Didn't really have a strong finish to his season. Didn't exactly test well. He's already been cut by 1 or 2 teams around the league, but he's played very well. All reports indicate he's played well. I haven't seen it, but does he have a shot here to make this roster?
You know, Rick, we had this same discussion in terms of the depth at that position. How many tackles can you really keep? I mean, you've got you forget you have Milton Williams, the guy they drafted last year in the 3rd round, who's certainly making this team. You got Hargrave, you got Fletcher, you've got Jordan. So there's 4 guys there. The kid from USC, Marlon. I mean, everything I've heard about him is, wow, he is more of the Jordan Davis mold, you know, a space eater, a guy who takes up blockers, not quite as athletic, obviously. But Kobe Smith, if you watch the game Sunday, he got reps with the second team. And people are like, wait, who the heck is this guy? So they've got a ton of depth at that position. The question is, and Marvin Williams is another guy that has a lot of talent that they seem to like. But how many of these guys can really make the roster? How many defensive tackles? And much like the wide receivers, if I keep 5 of those guys, how many snaps are they really getting behind Fletcher Cox, Jordan Hargrave, and Jordan Davis? And then you got to find room for Milton Williams.
And the other thing that plays into the tackle position is, at least the old coaching staff like to do it. We never really got a look at it last year, but they like to use Brandon Graham inside. Flip-flop him and move him off the edge and throw him into the tackle position on passing downs. And if you're doing that, that's another defensive tackle that's not getting on the field. So Sorry, Big Marv. I don't think you have any chance of making this football team. Maybe the practice squad. I don't know, but he's not making the 53-man roster. I don't think there's any chance there. Again, we're not at practice every single day. Johnny Mack gets a better look than we do, but we haven't had a chance to see Hassan Reddick wreak any havoc in an opposing team's backfield. He's just going to show up week 1 against the Lions and get Jared Goff twice? Is that what we have to believe here, Mike?
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I don't think you're going to see them unleash any blitzes or exotic stuff with him. And that's, you hope, right? The way they plan on using it. I talked about this the other day is when he's at practice, I might have asked John on my show, what room does he go to? Is he in the linebacker room? Is he in the defensive end room? Is there like a hybrid room? Like, what coach does he go to in his individual drills? Do they view him as a linebacker or no, he's an overhang? So, okay, what is that? Who coaches that guy? I think he's one of them guys that just kind of stands up, rushes the passer, changes sides, got to find out where 7 is, and then he just kind of unleashed to kind of go. So, yeah, Jody, in game 1 against the Lions, it's have at it, Hoss. Go after Jared Goff and see what happens. You know, he's one of these guys that, you know, in Arizona, they didn't know what to do with him. And then they kind of just said, hey, try this. And, you know, he jumps off with all these sacks. He goes to Carolina, has another good year. So 2 teams, 2 different defenses, he has got to the quarterback. So I think that the word is out that he can get there. Now, is he an elite pass rusher? No, but he's certainly better than anybody this team has had playing in that. They haven't had anybody play that position. They tried to use Avery, who just got cut by Pittsburgh, I guess, you know, as a speed off the edge. They really haven't had that guy. So, yes, I do think in game 1, Reddick, you'll see a different use of him.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about Hassan Reddick, but I am looking at the linebackers, again, coming down to the cut downs. Tough decisions to make.
Very
suddenly
tough.
You know, we were talking about how thin they were a year ago. Now, you know, Kaiser White, Davion Taylor, that looks like the weak side. Reddick and Patrick Johnson look like the strong side. You got TJ Edwards and Nakobe Dean there in the middle. I can't imagine they cut Sean Bradley. I love that, man. He's the junkyard dog, special teams dynamo. Are we saying goodbye here to Christian Ellis and Jacoby Stevens?
I would think so. You mentioned Rick Bradley. He's a special teams guy, and their special teams is not very good. He's the best they got, so he's got to stay. Davion Taylor, I thought, had a rough day at the office on Sunday, but, you know, they really like him in terms of his athleticism. I'm just interested to see how they use him. I thought it was pretty telling, though. Edwards and White, they're your starters. They didn't play on Sunday. The other guys were out there. They weren't. So I think that tells you those 2 guys get the and then it goes to, all right, if they get the majority of the snaps, how many is that? 80%, 75%? When does Dean and Taylor get out there? You mentioned Patrick Johnson. When does that group of guys get any playing time with the talent? Oddly, the talent they now have at linebacker. But I think it's clearly Edwards and White. Dean would be the next guy. I don't know how they incorporate Taylor. That should be pretty interesting. But that room has all of a sudden got a lot more depth and explosion and playmaking. They got playmakers, Jody, at linebacker.
It's been a while. I have to scratch my memory to remember when the Eagles had playmakers at linebacker. All right, Mike, because everyone is concerned with the roster cut down, who's going to be here, who's not. We are on Bird 365 anywhere. They're talking Eagles, your show, down the shore. Jalen Hurts is kind of floated into the background for this entire offseason. All we talk about, Jalen Hurts. Is he the quarterback? Are they going to give him $40 million a year? Why are they not drafting quarterback? Get Serritella on the phone. Find out who the best quarterbacks in the draft are going to be. And he's become kind of the forgotten guy because they have to do everything else but the quarterback position because we know he's going to be the starter. As soon as the first game goes, the spotlight is going to regenerate right onto the Eagles quarterback. How long is it going to take this year before we know that, okay, this is the guy? Howie, get ready. You're going to have to get a contract done with this guy or get Serritella back on the phone. We got to find out about the quarterbacks in the draft. Is it going to be a month? Is it going to be 8 weeks? Is it going to be week 17 while we're watching him get ready for a playoff game, but doubt him that he's going to be able to go into LA and beat the Rams? How long is it going to take before we know Jalen Hurts is or isn't the man for the Eagles?
Well, in the fans' mind, it'll be based on how the first quarter of the first game goes, right? That's how it works in this town. The Phillies are getting no hit last night. Thompson needs to be fired. Why is he playing Sosa? And then they come back and win the game, and it's like, but
I give an extension.
Right. Yeah. I think with Hurts, I don't know. Do you guys feel that? I feel that the team wants him to be the guy. Like, they don't want to keep going through this. So I think they legitimately like the kid. The team likes the kid, meaning the players, his teammates. So I think the team is legitimately hoping that he is the guy, which would then give you a longer leash, would it not? So I would think he gets a full season unless he's just holding them back so much like Wentz did in 2020 when he was just so bad they had to sit him. They just couldn't keep throwing him out there. I think that's the leash that Hurts gets. Like, the Eagles wanted Wentz to be the guy. He just was so bad they had to sit him. I think it would be similar with Hurts, where they want him to be the guy. He would have to be so bad for them to decide because they know they have picks. They know they have Minshew. And at that point, if they're still kind of hanging around 500, I think that would be disappointing. But, hey, we got 6 weeks left. We got a shot to make a run. We got to make a change, man. We tried. So probably about 10 to 12 weeks, somewhere in that range.
Let me just I'll give you my hot take of the morning here. I'll go on record before the season kicks off. By the end of the year, we'll be talking about a $35 to $40 million a year contract for Jalen Hurts because look at how they've set him up for success. Is there really a better supporting cast for any quarterback? You mentioned Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. As good as it gets right there. The offensive line, arguably the best in the league. The running game, strong. The defense, solid. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he doesn't make bad decisions. He would have to completely fall on his face. I think you're talking about a guy that passes for 25 touchdowns, runs for another 10. He's probably not a 4,000-yard passer. He's not the best quarterback in the league, but he's probably better than almost the other half. So I think he's right there in the middle of the pack. And let's be honest, finding a franchise quarterback is not easy when you have a guy that prepares and trains like Jalen Hurts. He's a true professional. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be the problem of this Eagles team. And I don't know if you want to follow up on that.
No, I agree with you, Rick. I happen to think that I got into it all offseason. I said, I'm not a huge proponent of just like what San Francisco did. They just gave up the whole draft to go get the number 2 pick to draft a quarterback who, I don't know, did anybody think Trey Lance was going to be this difference-making quarterback that's going to change your whole franchise? Maybe, maybe not. I feel like these teams are chasing a ghost that just doesn't exist, a franchise quarterback. They're just not out there. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they come around once a generation, and everybody sells their soul to go try to get one. I don't think the Eagles need to do that. I think they're going to have a guy that's going to keep them in the mix, and they have the supporting cast. We've seen, in this town, a supporting cast greater than the quarterback help them win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's a recipe to do it every single year, but it will keep you in the mix enough that you might be able to get one, which I think we should be pretty happy with. If I told you Jalen Hurts won 1 in 10 years, you probably should be pretty thrilled.
Ricky, the way you laid it out and kind of talked up everything around Jalen Hurts, I only got one question for you. Are they going 13-4 or 14-3? Because you were selling it pretty good there, buddy. I like the Eagles coming into the season. I think they're going to win the division. I'm on 11, and I'm at least leaving the possibility of getting up to 12. You sounded to me like you think they're going to be better than that.
Well, I mean, I think they should sweep the Giants. They should split with Washington and Dallas. That puts them at 4-2. If they go 6-5 the rest of the way, I think it's a double-digit win team. I think they can max out at 11. But to me, this is the NFC East front runners. I know Vegas doesn't see it that way, but I do. I think they're going to win the NFC East. I think they're going to host a playoff game, and they got to do better than, falling behind 31-0 at halftime to the Bucs.
Yeah. Well, listen, people too, there are really good quarterbacks out there. Justin Herbert is one of them who, as good as he is, they haven't been in the playoffs. Just having that guy and selling your soul for that guy, it then handcuffs you sometimes in other ways where there are lesser quarterbacks who have done more than some of the more talented guys. Joe Burrow is an excellent quarterback, but he also walked into a situation where look at the team that they were able to put around him because they've been so bad for so long that they were able to get all these picks, and then he walked right into a great situation. That doesn't happen too often where the quarterback comes to a team and he's got pieces. He's usually the first piece. So Cincinnati was so bad and they kept missing that they got all these other things, and then Burrow walks in. Well, Herbert, who has been just as good, if not better than Burrow, hasn't been able to get that team to the playoffs yet. So just getting this quarterback doesn't change your fortunes all the time immediately. Peyton Manning, that only happened one time when a guy went from the worst team in the league, then all of a sudden they're the best team in the league. That doesn't generally happen out there.
Couple of things. Number one, you got to give Burrow more credit than that. You talk about what they had. They had the worst offensive line in football.
True.
One of the worst. Then they went to the Super Bowl last year. He was getting killed. He was running for his life every single play. Talented wide receivers, but the offensive, they had to redo their whole offensive line this offseason. So give Burrow credit for what he did.
I like Burrow, and he was excellent. But my point is he had some weapons to help him in the pass game. Their defense was much better, too. Their defense was very good. Not elite, but they changed their defense. They had much better personnel defensively. Their line, you're absolutely right about that. But he had some amazing – he's got three guys that are just outstanding. Their running games, they got good backs that catch the ball in the backfield. Their line was terrible last year, though.
That's why I give him as much credit as I do for their success last year. All right, Mike, last thing for me, we got dual practices the next couple of days, and then the game on Saturday. Don't know how much the starters are going to play for either of these two teams, but we should see a pretty good amount of them the next couple of days in practice. Tua, franchise quarterback, or no in Miami?
No.
You're a Tua hater, huh?
I was not a big, tank for Tua. Again, I don't look at this quarterback. I did not see him as a guy that was going to change a franchise. Too small, gets hurt too much. Now, if Tua was a bigger guy and can handle the workload, maybe, not accurate enough of a downfield thrower. No, not a Tua. I don't know that. Look, again, like Hurts, can you win some games because they have talent around them? Yeah, they might. He's a winner. But not a franchise quarterback.
Is Tua not a winner?
No, I said he's a winner.
No, you said you were referring to Tua, not Jalen.
Yes. No, I said he's a winning player. I don't look at him as Mariota was a guy who came into the league and had some success early, had a lot of college success, and he got drafted number 2 overall. But I never looked at him as this winning player. Tua, I feel like is a guy who I look at as, hey, when Wentz first came to the Eagles, I remember being like, this kid just guts it out. I can't see a team being 5-11 with this guy because he just competes. And I don't know where that left him. I don't know if the injuries just mounted up on him. But I look at Tua similar, where he's a guy that I always feel competes hard. He's just a smaller guy, and I just feel like because of that, he's just not going to be this franchise elite quarterback.
All right, last one for me, Mike. I don't know how much of the Hard Knocks phenomenon you tuned into, but
I have seen none. I do not have HBO.
Okay, well, they are the media darlings here of the preseason. People are drinking the Dan Campbell Kool-Aid, obviously, against the Eagles week 1. Jody alluded to the Browns' strong offensive line. You could argue after the Eagles, maybe the Lions might have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And I apologize if they asked you this last week. I wasn't here, but I know McMahon thinks it's a blowout We can kick up the recliner at halftime. It'll be a double-digit lead, and the Lions have no shot. I tend to think this is going to be a game where the Lions are looking to make a statement. I do believe it's on the road. I think it's going to be competitive. The line is right around 3 or 4 points right now. So what's your take here for the week 1 score?
Yeah, I that Lions team, they fought hard all year long. They were in a lot of games, except for the one against the Eagles. The Eagles blew their doors off last year. That was one game where between Philly and Detroit and who they played? Oh, Atlanta in the opener, that they just absolutely dominated. But I think the Lions are definitely much more talented this year. You're in the second year of the coach. You're right. The line is much better for them. They got Williams is out, so they're not going to have him, but they've got a couple weapons. Hawkinson is a good tight end. The Eagles have had problems with tight ends. We'll see how that changes with the new linebackers, but I don't think your feet are up by halftime, Jody. I think you grind this one out, and maybe a 10-pointer late in the game, a late score separates you by 10.
I like Dan Campbell. I'm a Dan Campbell guy. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on Dan Campbell being the kind of guy you want to root for. Yeah. Lions aren't good enough. They're not a talented enough football team. Eagles will be up double digits at home and cruise in the second half. Go ahead, put the money aside, make your bet for week number 1. Do it before the line goes up, because the line will go up because the Eagles will cruise week number 1 against the Lions. Mikey, we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for hopping on with us today. Appreciate it, bud.
All right, guys, have a good day.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike Gill from the Sports Bash down the shore, 97.3 FM. All right, he's Ric Serritella. I'm Jody McDonald. We'll take a timeout. A couple of more things I want to run by Ricky. And then Rob Motti from the Associated Press. We haven't had the Motti man up in about a month, so I'm looking forward to talking to him on Birds 365.